Hello, welcome to another episode of Forward Vintage, where we talk about all sorts of vintage items and how to use them. This particular awesome record player from 1979 is a dual 1257 belt drive record player. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Dual is a classic turntable maker out of Germany, and they've been making turntables for a really long time. They're high precision instruments. They're great to use. I love them. Rock solid. Let's talk about how to use this one. For those of you who are just newly to our channel, by the way, I forgot to say, please subscribe to our channel. It really, and watch as many videos as you can, because it really helps what we do, and it really pretty much supports our cause, which is spreading the word about great vintage items and how to use them. So anyway, this record player, how do we use it and why is it awesome? Well, this is awesome on many levels because it can play multiple records all at once. You could pop this inside here, right? And then you would, so let me just show you how to do that. So this is for playing multiple records, right? You would pop this inside here, right? You pop it in here and you'll line this little teeny dot here with this little notch there. You push down and then you would move it over, right? And it locks, okay? And then you can attach the tone arm with this sort of lock here or detach it, right? And that keeps it in place. This cartridge, right, is on ours. So I would unlock, right? There's a sort of protective thing for the needle to make sure that the needle doesn't break, right? So I would unlock that protective cover, right, to make sure that I could now play my records. And then I can lift the tone arm up. Notice it lifts up, or drop the tone arm with this over here. We don't generally want to drop it by hand, but you could, so that you don't scratch a record. A couple other features that's cool on this is that it's got automatic queuing. So you would put your records and stack them up here, and in the order that you want to listen to them from the bottom up. And once that happens, you would press start, and this will move to the record and drop down and start from the beginning, and then move all the way to the end. And then once it gets to the end, it would come back, right? And you can actually press this to stop for it to do the reverse, which I'll show you later how I have an example of a record dropping and falling and the needle falling down and the whole thing working. Over here, you would adjust the pitch. So right now I have 33 for the big records, right? And 45 for the small records, right? For singles. And you can adjust the pitch by moving this back and forth, right? Little by little. And how do you do that? Well, there's a strobe here, and the strobe corresponds with these little dots here. And when you're dealing with 33 or 45, you would notice, right, it tells you for 45 what you're looking for, and for 33 what you're looking for hertz, and you would try to get these little dots to stand still accordingly. Alternatively, to set it proper, you could use a cell phone app that's made for this, where you would place your cell phone on top of the record. Like maybe I take a piece of tape or something, like one of those packing tapes, and I put my cell phone right on top of the platter, and it spins, and it can actually keep track of the exact RPMs that the record player is putting out, so you can adjust the pitch accordingly, because you want it to be 33 and a third for 33 and 45 RPM for 45s, right? So how else do we use this really gorgeous record player? Well, according to the cartridge that you have on here, right now I have a short cartridge, right? You would adjust according to the manufacturer of the cartridge, the anti-skating, right? Which has to do with the physics of the record player, right? So those of you who had some physics, right, you know that there's centripetal motion, right? There's some force going on as something spins. And in the case of record player, without the anti-skating, it will apply extra force, outward force on the grooves of the record. So this thing called anti-skating needs to be in place so that it balances that so it doesn't harm the record as the needle goes around the record. Also, you would need to adjust, right, the amount of grams over here of how much pressure, right, that your needle is going to be putting down on top of your record, which also has to do with the cartridge that's installed. So I adjusted it according to the manufacturer, whatever the manufacturer tells you you can do, right? So other than that, this record player also has another sort of centerpiece here for one record, which I don't have with this one, and they both attach over here when you're not using them, right? And the other interesting couple features is that you'll notice that this thing is kind of suspended in the inside, right? It's on springs on the inside so that when you bounce up and down and dance on the floor, it's not going to really affect the needle in the groove, right? And when you're in like moving with this record player, you want to actually go over here and use your screwdriver and make this all the way on this one and in this one, and sometimes there's another one over here, I believe. And that will hold this platter down so that you can transport the record player safely to wherever you're gonna go. So that's pretty much the features of this record player. It's a stereo record player, so it comes with RCA cables, right? Stereo RCA cables left and right. And you also wanna make sure you ground this record player too. It does not have an internal preamp, so you would need to connect it to either a preamp or you would need to connect it to a receiver with a preamp. There's no speakers, right? This is not actual wood, it's simulated grain, right? But it's still pretty nice, right? And what's also great is that this one has a nice dust cover that you can open up and close, right, whenever you need to. I like the dust covers because things get dusty and components get all dusty and filthy, and if you have this on, it makes it a lot easier to keep the device working and nice and clean. And it fits in, and I'm going to show you, it fits in the back over here. So you'll notice that there's these two areas here for where the dust cover needs to go in, and they're on springs. And you would insert the dust cover into these areas, and then it opens up right nicely and closes nicely, right? So this particular model might not have been one of the most popular duals of the time, but it was definitely a great one from 1979, and I highly recommend it. I've listened to this many, many times, and it sounds phenomenal. And I also love this brand. I feel like anything that comes out of Germany or Switzerland is made just super well and with high precision, and it will last a very long time if kept proper. The other thing that I want to talk about is some maintenance, right? So underneath, you could take this sort of mat out, right? It comes with this rubber mat that you can change to cork, right? Or anything that you would like, acrylic. Some people use acrylic. And you'll notice that there are these sort of grooves here. There's these holes here in the platter. Well, the platter can be removed by taking a little plier, and there's a metal hoop there, right, that you can remove with the plier, and it will come off. I don't want to do that right now, but it will come off to maintain what's going on underneath. But if sometimes you need to change the belt, right, which you can purchase online, you would take this platter off, put a belt right underneath. There's actually like a piece of metal, a circle piece of metal that you would put the belt around, and then you can actually hold it with your finger through here. So like one of these, right? You'd hold the rubber band, the belt, with your finger, and you would place it over here around this thing here where the motor is. You see? There's also another belt underneath for this part, right, that goes back and forth. Everything needs to be kept really nice and clean, right? You don't want to put grease on the belt itself because it will stop working. There are some common things that need to be dealt with this sort of record player too. You need to every so often grease it, right? Most of the time these vintage players have grease that's dried up. You would have to remove this. This is the record player part here. You would remove it by taking these screws out here and then detaching this. This comes off of the base, and underneath there are gears, and you would have to clean them out, which I did for this one really carefully. You would have to clean them out and also grease everything accordingly so all the mechanisms work properly. Other than that, once this thing has been properly cleaned, lubricated, and is taken care of, over the years, you're gonna have some great sounding equipment right here. So I hope that this really helps, and I'm gonna show this thing in action. But I'd like to ask you to please subscribe to our channel because it supports all that we do. And I also hope that you check out our Instagram at Forward Cameras and also our Twitter at Forward Cameras. And stay tuned for another episode of Forward Vintage where we talk about awesome things like this together. And please subscribe. Take care. Bye-bye.